That's my announcement I have to make. Originally I came here to challenge myself, to fight all comers, and I feel like I've done that. I mean, who's left? I'm good right now, just retiring my belt, concentrating on my marriage, and doing a few other things. I spent a lot of time training. I'd like to get a few days off. I know Bob wants me to work and all. I think I'm gonna leave this belt in the ring here for the next crew to pick up and retire my title tonight.
Well, I'd like to introduce
Doctor,
now
huh?
Hello everyone and welcome to MMA Start to Finish. I'm Julian and this is Matt.
Howdy.
Today we're going to be talking about UFC 22, which we were both pretty excited for the main event. We got Frank Shamrock and Tito Ortiz.
The Huntington Beach bad boy.
Yes, the Tito Ortiz is an interesting character. I'll leave it at that.
And he's down. What a gutsy performance by the champ.
So this was actually a very... competitive is a weird word to use because Tito was just winning the entire fight to my estimation. Like if I was judging, I would have scored all 4 rounds up to that point for him.
He definitely was winning the first 2. I think he slowed down in the third.
We definitely slowed down.
Because it was mostly just a ground game at that point.
Yeah, a lot of the fight was Tito holding... I almost said Ken, that's funny. Frank in guard and like giving him a little bit of ground and pound. Frank got kind of messed up. You could see he has like, some cuts over his eye they had to clean up after the fight.
Yeah.
Tito got his licks in. He wasn't just holding him down. But as you were saying, as the fight went on, Tito ran out of fuel in his furnace.
Yeah.
And Frank did not.
One thing as we've been watching more of these fights and modern day fights as well, one thing I've started to appreciate more is how long the championship fights are.
Yeah, it's a lot more endurance required.
5-minute rounds, and with the space in between, it's a half-hour fight, pretty much.
Functionally, yeah, with the minute rest between rounds, you basically get a half-hour long fight, yeah.
If it goes all the way, at least.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to think of that is like when we have good fights, it feels like, oh, that round went by so fast. But when we get these slow ones, this one wasn't a slow fight. This was pretty active, all things considered.
I'll speak more on that in a second, but go ahead and finish your point. Like more on the general quality of the fight.
Yeah. But when we get some real slow fights, like there's been a couple that we've both seen together in the modern...
Yeah, they've been a slog.
Modern day
It feels
fights.
like they drag on and on.
Whether it's like no one's really making any ground or they're just kind of holding each other the whole half hour.
It's
that
stalemate.
happens sometimes too.
Yeah.
And you really feel how long a half hour can be. It's got to be so much longer for them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's got to be every time.
I wonder, because, like, when you're in an adrenaline situation, is it going to seem like it went by really quick because you're all amped up? Or because the fight's so long, your adrenaline, I guess, eventually wears off and then it feels like it's forever because you're...
I think it's going to feel longer for both reasons. Because you have that adrenaline high at first, and so you're reacting to everything really quickly. And so that slows down time for you.
Okay, I see where you're coming from.
And then once that high goes away, whether it's after the first minute or the first round, you have that moment to breathe and then get back into it. Maybe get another adrenaline high, but after a certain point, the adrenaline high is gone.
It becomes an adrenaline dump, and then you're just like...
You're just there, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Some people have incredible stamina, and so they're just going to be able to continue and pump
Just
out.
deal, yeah.
Or, well, with Tito, we see...
Some people are Tank Abbott.
There's Tank Abbott, who was in the crowd tonight.
I'm pretty sure he's at this time was like affiliated with Tito, because I know Tito trained with him in the past, so that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, we never got him on like mic or anything.
No, not in the at least the archive broadcast.
Yeah,
maybe he said some crazy shit live we don't know about.
yeah. They couldn't include it in the
dropped it like a slur or some insane Colby shit.
Yeah, but just
sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, that's fine. I'm appreciating how long, I guess, time is.
That's I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
To talk more about the general quality of the fight, we were reading through the Wikipedia page before we were recording, and they were talking about on there how it was vaunted as like one of the best fights of the time, or at the time, I should say. Watching it back, like, God, what is it? 21 years later.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Like it's a fun fight to watch, especially like with the stakes involved. But a lot of it is sort of just like grounded pound, and then the finishing sequence isn't like super impressive from Frank. I mean, we might as well transition to that now. So yeah, Tito basically just secured this position for 4 rounds and worked from this position to like land grounded pound. But like Matt was saying, he ran out of gas, and Frank was able to finish him off with this. By the way, that wasn't a hammer fist that came down out of that. If you haven't seen the fight yourself, that was an elbow, dog. He got walloped with that, and then he tapped to strikes. Big John didn't step in. It wasn't a TKO. It was a submission.
Yeah,
and it was like right at the end of round 4 too. So yeah, all that considered, like it was a fun fight to watch, but it doesn't stack up to something like and not a lot of fights stack up to something like a Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, or Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. Like
last second knockout.
The standard has been raised, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, because people are they have a wider breadth.
They're just way better. You could just say it. They're just like way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think an average fighter, like an average like mid-card fighter in the UFC today, would probably relatively easily defeat pretty much anybody from this era, just because their skill set's more developed.
Put in like a Israel Adesanya, and they think he's a magician.
Oh yeah, dude, they think he was like a wizard sent from the future. Yeah. For a bunch of reasons.
And I think I already made my point, but just of how long time is. Tito, he's been amazing. He only lost the one fight before.
Yeah, and it was kind of that freak thing.
Otherwise, he's done phenomenal for all 4 total fights he's had.
Yeah, it's still a young sport.
But gets into the 4th round, he's
literally never done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's tired. I don't think he had the proper what's it called? Cardio for it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're kind of burying the lead here, where I guess we opened with this and didn't really talk about it. But after his victory here and sticking his tongue at us like a little trickster, Frank retired. Frank retired from the UFC. He said, there ain't no competition. There's no point in me being here. Y'all ain't paying me enough, basically, was the subtext to that, in my opinion. So he retired. According to Wikipedia, and like based off my own personal knowledge, it wasn't like a long-term retirement.
I kind of got that feeling before even reading the Wikipedia that I know the sport explodes from where it is.
Yeah.
In popularity and how many people are in it. I know you're making money signs.
I'm doing the money thing with my hands too, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Krabs. So I don't expect this retirement to last long, and apparently it doesn't.
Also, you've seen like in the modern era, there's a lot of dudes who are like, I'm retiring, and then a week later on Twitter, they're like, psych, actually, I was just upset. No, I'm not retiring. Or, psych, actually, my boss agreed to give me way more money. I'm not retiring.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Well, there's not a ton of money to pass around at this point, I don't think. Frank also, I can't remember the kid's name or like what relation he has with this child, but he dedicated the fight to the kid because they had cancer.
But it was a nice gesture for him to be like, yo, I fought, but like this girl's fighting cancer. That shit's way harder is basically what he said.
Yeah, can't armbar cancer.
Yeah, you can't really TKO a tumor.
Oh my goodness! Wow! That's it.
It's time for the obligatory banishment to the Shadow Realm for the evening. We have, by the way, before we even get into the fight here at the tail of the tape, where you can see that this man outweighs his opponent despite being a good like 4 or 5 inches shorter. Brad Kohler, who we have seen before, but I really just want to hammer this point home, looks like a fucking human fire hydrant. Okay, he looks like if you tried to hug him, it hurt you. All right.
You don't think he'd be like one of those like soft giants?
Oh, I'm sure he's a nice man, but he looks like he's made of rocks, and he's like 5'9".
If we could just make him taller, do you think it would make Big John look small?
Yes. If we could make him Big John's height, Big John would look like a small child.
Just give him a stool.
Just put a bunch of phone books under him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got Brad Kohler here taking on Steve Judson, who had an interesting physique himself. I'm just going to wager both these dudes were having some supplements delivered to them that may or may not have been above board.
They both had built-in
Yeah.
travel pillows in
their
their shoulders.
Yeah. There's not a lot to talk about here. I'll just let you take the floor. Brad sent Steve to a different galaxy.
Yeah. It wasn't like right off the bat, but this was a 30-second fight.
Yeah, there was a takedown scramble sequence. They were back to their feet, and then Brad delivered his Falcon Punch.
I think he had to go to the hospital because of it.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, he had an indent in his chin.
Yeah.
From getting fucking drilled, which is insane.
Yeah.
And they had to take him out on a stretcher to the hospital. Pretty sure he's fine.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
There wasn't a cross next to his name that indicated he's dead.
Yeah, I feel like if that kills him or did serious permanent damage, they would have included that in the article. But if we're wrong, that's where you come in the comments and let us know actually this dude was permanently damaged, and we're rude for talking about it. That's where you come in to make us feel bad.
That's how we get a learning experience out of this.
Yeah. Oh, we should also mention this fight wasn't the co-main event. It was a prelim fight they showed us between the co-main event and the main event. You can see why they showed us the fight.
Yeah.
It was 8 seconds long, and a man got sent, I have to emphasize this, to a different dimension. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most satisfying is a weird word to use when a man's consciousness leaves his body, but it was one of the most satisfying walk-off KOs I've seen since we've started doing the show.
Yeah. There were 2 other prelim fights. We'll just mention them because this is a prelim fight.
Yeah, this is a good time to mention them actually, because 2 of the dudes that competed are pretty big names in MMA, and we're gonna see them more as the show goes on. Jens Pulver and Matt Hughes both made their UFC debuts on this card in prelim fights that I'm sure exist on Fight Pass, but they weren't a part of the main broadcast, and just, so these shows don't take us 9 years to make. Mm-hmm. We usually keep things to what's on the main archived broadcast. But Matt Hughes won a decision, and according to Wikipedia, do you remember what it said about Jens Pulver's fight?
It got overturned to a draw.
It was originally he'd won via decision, and then
by unanimous decision.
And then they overturned it to a draw.
Yeah.
Interesting. If anybody knows more about that, please educate us.
If I had to guess, it was either some sort of
point deduction?
I guess point deduction? Because if it was anything to do with he was clearly on some kind of performance enhancing drugs, they probably
would be a no contest. It would be a draw.
Yeah. They wouldn't just deduce it to
or
draw.
Be a DQ.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do a draw. The one thing I'm thinking is he probably won 2 rounds to 1, and then maybe got a point deducted for some reason, and then that would make it a draw. That's how you'd go from a unanimous decision to a draw.
Or maybe they just announced it wrong.
But again, this is where you come in to educate us. How was Jens Pulver sabotaged at UFC 22? Let us know.
Who's he fighting, if you remember?
Give me a moment. Jens Pulver was fighting Alfonso Alcaraz, who has the noble distinction of not having a Wikipedia page. So, the highest of competition here. Also, I want to point out that it is weird that they mentioned that prelim fights were only 2 5-minute rounds, yet both of these other prelim fights, and presumably the Brad Kohler Steve Judson fight that didn't like see a conclusion because it's all a conclusion, but it ended early. 3 rounds. Jens Pulver and Matt Hughes both fought 3-round fights, despite them saying in the beginning that prelim fights were 2 rounds. Unless they changed that and forgot to mention it.
Maybe they accidentally had the 3rd round and then they backtracked it, and that's why it's a draw.
That'd be hilarious, dude. That'd be really funny.
Oh, you guys just kept fighting, so we just let you just let you do it.
You guys seem like you're having fun. We don't want to stop you. Anyway, again, if you know what happened there, type it below.
Before that, a very brief prelim fight that they showed us before the main event, we had UFC Japan. Their president, I can't remember his name.
Nor can I, unfortunately.
Oh, they combined with Pride eventually.
The position was short-lived. So to my understanding, and again, comments, educate me. I'm not an expert here. The UFC tried to like branch out into Japan because they saw the success Pride was having, but they weren't Pride, so like they didn't like take to the market very well. So they just decided to keep things like not in Japan, like stateside, and eventually into Brazil and stuff. So this is like part of that effort to like branch out into Japan. They had that one like UFC Ultimate Japan that we covered a while ago, and this is their second time going to Japan since then. And since I believe between those events, we've had a lot of Pride events. So Pride has exploded in popularity. So the dynamic they're entering when they go to Japan this time is a little different. They're kind of like, I don't want to say small fish now, but a little bit, in Japan at least.
A part of me wants to believe that while they didn't have any big events, well, they had a couple of big events, I guess.
Who? Pride or UFC?
UFC Japan.
Okay, I see.
That maybe they still just had a building for it, and so it was just very small level local kind of fights.
I don't think so. I think they just had like I think what this dude is just basically like I'm having a hard time finding the words for it, but like a PR guy basically to communicate with the public and markets, like a marketing dude for the UFC in Japan for the Japanese audience. To like the modern day equivalent would be like a Dana White, a promoter. That's the word I'm looking for. He's the Japanese promoter to promote the fights in Japan. I don't think they were like putting on fights regularly under like their own promotion. I'm pretty sure they didn't do that. It was just like when the UFC came to town, this dude was like in charge of promotion, and I assume promoting like American events for them to buy. Because I don't know. I'm not omnipotent. Can you buy American UFC pay-per-views in Japan in the 90s? I don't know. If not, I guess he was marketing the home VHS release.
I don't think you could, unless you had like some special TV
like satellite
set up,
package.
I don't think you'd be able to get the pay-per-view for that.
It's interesting though, because I'm pretty sure not the first couple of Prides, because they didn't even broadcast, I think, to American audiences. But like once Pride like blew up, and you could watch it in America, you could buy a Japanese pay-per-view and watch it at odd hours of the night. I know you can definitely do it now because I've actually done it myself for like pro wrestling stuff back in the day. I've bought a pay-per-view that starts at like midnight and ends at like 5 in the morning. I've done that before. I don't know when that technology was like birthed or when they started utilizing it. So I'm assuming eventually Pride used that tech, but like in the 90s, I wonder how
prevalent it was.
Yeah, I wonder how exposed. I ask all this because I wonder how exposed the Japanese audience was to the UFC's product outside of like the 2 events they had there, which is interesting. Like honestly, at this point, it seems like the products are about even. If anything, I'd say the UFC is a little bit better. But just knowing my history, I know the level of competition and Pride and some of the guys that we're going to see there is going to like elevate very soon.
The left eye of Paul Jones, and there it is. Now it's over. The end of the fight. It is over, and Chuck Liddell victorious here in the heavyweight matchup over Paul Jones.
Up next, we have Chuck Liddell returning to the octagon, despite their insistence on pronouncing his name wrong, calling him Chuck Liddell. Back here taking on Paul Jones, who looked, I gotta say, my first note here is Paul looks very old. It says he's 36 here on the tail of the tape. tell me what you think. Paul look a little older than 36 to you? He looked like he was wearing those years pretty hard?
I mean, how old is Donald Cerrone?
Cowboy's around that age. Maybe a little older. Cowboy has actually, like, miles on that car, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
because as far as age, appearance, that's what he looks like to me.
okay, that's fair. I don't know what struck me about his, how him looking old. Like, it was just very weird.
He didn't strike me as that old. Aging, as far as the sport goes, but not like...
No, nothing on that,
no set date for leaving.
50-year-old dude who fought at UFC like 3 or 2 or whatever
God,
it was.
no.
You remember that?
No.
It was like I don't remember his name, so forgive me, but he was this like black karate dude, and he was like 50 years old, and he fought in like one UFC event, and everybody was like, "Oh Jesus, like you old, don't do that."
Yeah.
And then the next event, he was like, he had some like weird official position at ringside where he was in a tuxedo. Does this ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember. I just
Got
can't
nothing
remember
on
his
that
name.
dude. Is all I'm trying to say. He doesn't look that old.
No.
So Paul was kind of just spamming takedown attempts a lot of this fight, and as you could see based on Chuck's eruption, didn't really work out too well for him.
The one thing I noticed about Paul was that he looked pretty gassed within the first round. But this was a 1-round fight, but like within 2 minutes, he seemed like he was slowing down quite a bit.
I think he didn't expect Chuck to put up as much of a defense in the wrestling department as he did, because he probably saw his fight with Jeremy Horn, where he kind of got lulled into that choke and got choked out, and figured, oh, this dude's not like an experienced grappler. Little does he know Chuck has like amateur wrestling experience and has like very good takedown defense, especially like as time goes on, he'll get better takedown defense. So he probably wore himself out trying to like really secure a takedown and do something with it. And once he lost that, he was like, ah, shit.
Shit went bad real quick.
Chuck has mean knees.
Yeah. This is basically what ended the fight. There was some follow-up in terms of ground and pound, but none of it was like nearly as significant as these knees here. These knees are basically what spelled the end for our boy Paul here. They would get back up to their feet after this actually, and Chuck would throw like a head kick that didn't really connect, and Paul would shoot for a takedown, and Big John would separate things, and then things would get kind of confusing because it seemed like Chuck won, but then commentary had said no, it's a doctor stoppage. They're taking a look at the cut that had formed from these fucking knees to the top of his head.
Yeah.
And then after looking at it for a minute, John waved it off. It's like, I don't think it's a doctor stoppage technically because the doctor didn't wave it off because of the cut. Big John had determined after pulling him off, like, you know what, no, we're done here. So I think it's still like technically like a referee stoppage, TKO. But it was weird. It was a weird stop. It was funny because Chuck won and he did his little like vibrating man shtick, and then he was like, wait, maybe we're not done here, so he stopped. And then they were like, no, you won. You're good. And then he vibrated harder, and it was great. Yeah, cue vibrating Chuck. My favorite. Chuck is one of my, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show before, but when I first got into the UFC in like 2009, and even then it was on like a very light basis because I was a kid and I couldn't like get pay-per-views, so I just watched like fight nights and, you know, like the highlight reels. Chuck was my favorite fighter. Even then he was old, but there's this angry man with the mohawk who would put a hurting on you. I was a big fan of that. Cool nickname, the Iceman. I was a big fan. So I'm excited for us to watch his evolution here.
Yeah. I think the most confusing part of it was just because, for the weird stoppage, I guess, was Paul was up, and he was like, he was running away, so I could see that as...
I think he was shooting for a takedown.
Well, he ran like most of the way across the octagon.
Oh, to avoid the kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then went down to grab for a leg, and I guess in the moment it looked like Big John was going to be like, hey, okay, he's done. He's giving up. He's turtling.
I think Big John
But in actuality, it was to stop, to check out that cut.
I think, too, he was like reading the
confusing
situation. I think he was trying to read the situation, get a beat on how Paul was doing. And you're like technically, I don't think supposed to do that, but he waited a little bit to like see how he was doing once he pulled him off, and like to also investigate the cut, and then was like, oh, this dude's like fried. We're done here. But yeah, that's definitely confusing. I see where you're coming from.
Because I try to think of like my initial reaction as opposed to my analyzed reaction.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Because everyone there is having their mostly immediate reaction, and that is what's deciding things.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So, like, someone gets a big cut on their forehead and there's blood coming down a lot.
Yeah.
We know that just happens because of cuts on the forehead, because your head bleeds a lot.
Yes, your head do be bleeding.
If there's been no other major cuts for the rest of the night so far, or if that's like the first cut of the night, like first fight, I could see the doctor maybe freaking out a little bit, especially for a mildly new sport.
In like the 90s, yeah.
Yeah. And being like, all right, you're out. You're losing too much blood.
Just being overly cautious, like
Yeah.
we're in New York or some shit.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
As opposed to just like put some Vaseline on that and you're set.
They're not Vegas in 2007 who's been there, done this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. They have like the established practices for like doctor stoppages and like how you handle a cut are not really established yet.
Yeah. The only thing they have to go off of is like, I guess like kickboxing matches or boxing matches.
Yeah, and that's what the scoring's based off of. So they are framing a lot of their methodology off of those. And we've talked about it before. It's like because they want legitimacy, right? They got all this bad press from their human cockfighting marketing in the early 90s, and now they're trying to like appeal more to the mainstream and be more accredited. So they're going to adopt a lot of stuff from sports, combat sports that are already accredited.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And going back to my reaction versus analysis, everyone who's there and everyone who's watching this on pay-per-view is thinking as far as like who won, and even the judges to a certain degree. I know they're there to like analyze and like in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if it looks like someone is winning, even if maybe they aren't by like number of strikes and how hard
Statistically.
Yeah. I feel like that plays a lot more than an analyzed look would give you. I don't know. Maybe I'm just
No, I
speaking
understand
out
what
my
you're
ass.
saying. I'm just trying to like think about like where the analysis like the more analytical view comes into play outside of training.
So I forget which fight it was I was thinking of as far as one fighter won by like damage and the other one by domination of the octagon.
I think I know what fight you're talking about. Do you want to table this conversation and we'll talk more about it when we get to that fight, because it's actually going to be the last fight we talk about.
Sure, but I guess
If you want to wrap up your thoughts and then we can talk about it more, that's fine too.
Yeah, just the idea of, yes, this one is winning. It is
Like to the naked eye, it seems like X fighter is winning, but if you actually
Yeah.
look at like total strikes and significant strikes and octagon control, that might present a different story. I guess what you're
the
trying to
more
say.
you analyze, the less reactionary
Reactionary your analysis is. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel like that goes into play of how fights are judged. And so I like to try and keep myself in the mindset of what my initial reaction was. Because I feel like the more I analyze it, the more I think of like, oh, there's this fault and there's...
And
They
when
could've
a
done
judge
this
is scoring,
instead.
they're not really doing that, especially back then. So you're trying to put yourself in that mindset.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And to like try and capture that moment more.
Okay. So that's why it fucked you up so much when...
Yeah, when we've seen this fight twice now.
To come full circle.
And it's like, well, obvious. Now in my head, it's like, and now he's doing this to stop, not the fight, but to check the cut. Whereas everyone there, they're seeing it, oh my God, he's stopping the fight. Fight's over.
Yeah.
I can't entirely remember what my point was to like start this, other than just
it confusing.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it was like an interesting dive into the way you watch fights, though.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner by tap out due to an armbar at 2 minutes, 8 seconds in the first round for the winner, Jeremy Horn.
Look at Jeremy Horn. He's tapping everybody out he sees. First he's strangling Chuck. Now he's putting Jason in arm bars. He's moving up a weight class too, by the way. They did mention that. He'd been fighting at middleweight, which is in this time period anything sub 200, and now he's fighting with the big boys. He's putting on 30 pounds to fight at heavyweight.
Even though he's still 22 pounds lighter.
Yeah, he's going to basically be outweighed by all his opponents. In the modern era, Jeremy Horn would never fight at heavyweight. He would probably cut to like 185, 170.
I love how undescriptive their fighting styles are.
Oh yeah, dude. They're just making shit up.
Freestyle versus integrated.
There's not a ton to talk about in this fight here. Basically, Jeremy snatched up this dude's arm in what, like under... Let's take a look here, see how long this fight was. It took Jeremy 2 minutes and 8 seconds to secure this arm bar. Where he honestly, I mean, smart on Jason's point to not let his arm get extended and turned into like Gumby. But it was weird because he tapped out so fast. You didn't even really get to see the armbar fully develop. He knew what was happening. He tapped.
I guess part of his integrated fighting training is he knows what an armbar is and knows, oh fuck, I'm fucked.
I don't want this shit snapped.
So he's immediately tapping.
I mean, Jeremy had it. He was about to go belly down with it too, as you can see here. So it was a wise decision.
Godzi was doing pretty well, though. He was throwing his weight around as much as he could.
That was his advantage, yeah.
But there he is on his back.
Jeremy clearly has more technical skill at this point.
Yeah.
He is ripped.
Jacked he is, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, a shredded man. My first note here, not my first note, but one of my first notes is under John Lewis in all caps. Fucking shredded. This man is, he is jacked.
John is jacked and is going to do jujitsu.
It was interesting because they have both of these gentlemen listed as jujitsu, but it was really more of a striking contest more than anything else, especially early.
Not a whole lot on the ground. The first round definitely was for Lewis.
Yeah, he basically just... Nothing crazy. He did, like, drop him, but he used the word drop very lightly. It looked like he was kind of off balance, Anderson, when Lewis caught him. But he basically, like, pieced him up on the feet for most of the first round. And round two was, like, a lot of nothing, really, honestly. It was a lot of Lewis in Lowell's guard, because that's, like, where he wanted him.
A lot of guard and clinch.
Yeah, and not a lot of offense from Anderson.
So Lewis kind of just exploded in the first round, recollected in the second round.
And, you know, I'd say it was... I'd probably give Lewis both those rounds, even though the first round was a lot more dominant. And round three, boy fucking howdy.
He explodes again.
Oh, yeah. You can see 9 seconds into the round, comes out with these, like, clinch knees that are friggin' brutal. And after a few more strikes...
They throw the towel at Lewis.
Yeah, his corner throws him the towel, and that's a W for Lewis there. You know, it's a weird towel throw. I'm not gonna lie. I'd always rather. I say this all the time. I'd always rather a referee or a corner stop a fight a little early than a little late, because I'd rather be like, oh, he could have fought more than, oh, he's brain dead now. Mm-hmm. Like, it's definitely preferable A to be there. So I'm okay with his corner throwing the towel in, but I was surprised to see it. especially since we've been seeing it less and less as time progresses here.
I think that's another one of those reaction versus analyzing things.
He probably like never even taken a knee in training, and his corner saw him get kneed in the face, and they were like, "Oh,
7
shit."
times.
Yeah, they decided to call it.
Because us looking at it, there's a chance he could come back from it, maybe win by decision, maybe if the judges are not paying a whole lot of attention.
Yeah.
Maybe get a lucky strike in, or at the very least lose by decision.
Because he wasn't on the path to winning that fight, is what you're getting
No,
at, really.
not really.
He clearly lost the first round. Second round, he probably lost, but it was much closer. And this round had just begun, but he was getting pieced up. So basically, his corner, you're not thinking about all this in the moment. In the moment, you're just like, oh shit, my boy's getting kneed in the face. Mm-hmm. But like subconsciously, you're thinking, he's probably lost the first 2 rounds. He's definitely lost the first round. He's losing the beginning of this round by getting kneed in the head. For him to turn this around, he's not just going to have to win this round. He's going to have to finish him this round. Mm-hmm. So as his friend and as his cornerman, it's probably best for me to just bail him out here. Again, you're not thinking about all that in the moment, but I imagine subconsciously that's what's going on.
And he wasn't on the ground yet.
No, that's why I was surprised he threw the towel in.
Yeah.
Because he was... do we have a screenshot here? No, it's not. It's just the Jeremy Horn thing. But he was like more or less up against the cage when he threw the towel at him, like on his feet.
Yeah.
As you can see from the clip that we'll include. But it was a weird one, but it wasn't like weird in a way where a corner robbed a dude who was winning the fight of the fight. It was like the guy who was losing had his corner ended early, so be it.
Save him the extra pain.
Honestly, corners should probably consider this course of action more often now. Maybe not this early, but there's been plenty of fights that come to mind recently where a corner could have bailed their dude out from like, probably like permanent life-altering damage.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to the foul that was assessed Mr. Ron Waterman in the first round, the judges have called this fight a draw. We have a draw.
The last fight we're going to be talking about tonight, in the first fight we watched, is Tim Lasik versus Ron Waterman. Ron Waterman, you will remember as the art teacher who they make very many puns about being sculpted. We have fun here, folks. Mike Goldberg is a wise gentleman.
He's well molded.
Very witty. Take it on Tim Lasik, who's just, kind of your standard heavyweight wrestler dude. This was a weird fight. As you can see by the clip leading in, we had this go to a draw. Mm-hmm. And it was a draw because of a foul to Ron that, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember commentary ever mentioning the foul.
I can't remember them mentioning it. It was a low blow by Ron after the bell was rung from the first round. Interesting.
I missed that. So I was kind of confused at the end because it had seemed like it was probably 2 rounds to 1 for Ron. That he had won, if I'm remember, let me look at my notes here. Yeah, he'd won that first round and probably that third round. So I had expected to see him win. But if he got a point deducted, that makes sense how it ends up as a draw.
Mm-hmm. I definitely had it as Ron was winning as far as control. Definitely won the first round. Nothing amazing or crazy, but he won it. Second round, debatable. Third round, he was on the winning side.
In the second round, what happened was he started getting tired and telegraphing his takedown attempts, and then Tim was able to get some strikes off. But by the third round, it seemed like either he'd regained his energy or Tim was also tired now, and he just was able to go back to the same strategy that worked in round 1. I mean, this here is basically what the fight was for most of rounds 1 and 3. Just Ron on top of Tim. Honestly, not that dissimilar to the first fight we talked about, Tito and Ken, where Tito was just kind of on top of Ken, beating his ass for a while. This was basically that, except Tim didn't capitalize when Ron was gassed, really, and gassed himself.
I felt like Tim did more damage, though. As far as just, I guess, making Ron bleed.
Yeah, okay.
I know it's not the greatest standard.
I think you have an argument, though. I think in that second round, he did enough damage to maybe if not outweigh, at least equal the output from Ron in rounds 1 and 2. But unfortunately, we do not have like a nuanced scoring system in this sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like he won round, he won other round, he won round, the end.
Yeah.
So it's hard for... I mean, there is ways for you to like impart nuance. There's 10-8 rounds. But that's not really what the 10-8 round is for, especially back then. The 10-8 rounds for like, oh, this boy almost got fucking finished. Not there's like degrees of separation from round 1 to 2, which maybe would work better, but it's complicated. These are problems you get when you just take your scoring model from a different sport that's not like for you, which I've rambled about plenty, even just today.
I like the part where Tim was just kind of spinning around on Waterman's back.
When he was trying to get a
He was
back
just trying
position.
to get back position, and he was just spinning this way and that way. It felt longer than it actually was.
The scrambles are entertaining.
It was probably in like 2 seconds, but it felt like he was just going around and around. Because my note is just, you spin me right round, baby. And Tim spinning around on Waterman's back. This was actually kind of noteworthy. Waterman had a 30-pound advantage, so that probably played into the control aspect.
Yeah, I think what I said to Matt when it looked like Ron was getting tired in round 2 is that when you're a big human meat balloon, you can only like expend so much energy before you're just done. Because again, not to like be exhaustive with this point, all these men are on steroids. They're all on steroids. This dude is on steroids. Let's be real. It's fine. I'm not judging. It's cool. Do whatever you want, bro. It's a free country.
It's just different amounts of steroids.
Yeah. So one of the things with like getting that jacked is you're gonna get tired very fast.
But it's okay, because Tim... No, he didn't get any sleep.
Oh,
That's right.
That's right. Oh, I do want to add too is just like a dumb note that I both love and hate the fact that Ron Waterman's cornermen were wearing T-shirts that said H2O man on them. Get it, guys? Waterman. Up next on MMA Start to Finish, we have the aforementioned UFC Japan 2 coming up, UFC 23. It seemed like actually it is just like a chronological UFC event. They didn't go with some weird ultimate .5 name this time, so that's refreshing, at least for my record-keeping sake.
Yeah, same.
So until then, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, hit the like button. Let us know what you thought of the fights in the comments below. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Bye. We love you.